Chapter 11. Kate stood in front of the mirror inspecting her appearance. It didn't matter whether she turned left or right. The pale blue dress felt far too plain to be getting married in. If only her mother's wedding dress hadn't been torn and dirtied. A knock sounded at the door, and Martha stuck her head in. "Good morning. Clark told me the good news, and I thought maybe I had something that might help. Can I come in?" "Of course," Kate said. "I don't look like much of a bride anyway." "Maybe I can help with that," Martha said, as she entered the room and shut the door behind her. "Clark and I never had a daughter, but I kept this anyway." She held out a long white dress with a lace neckline and ruffled sleeves. "I think I was a little bigger than you, but we could tie the sash tighter and add a few carefully hidden pins." Kate's eyes flooded with emotion as she reached out to touch the dress. "Why are you doing this for me? You barely know me." Martha smiled. "That may be, but we know Jesse. He has always treated people fairly and done what he can to help, just like he's doing now. You both have had a rough patch starting out, but maybe you can find a greener pasture together. Besides, here in Sage Creek, we take care of our own, and since you're about to be one of us, I can't have you getting married in a blue gingham dress, pretty as it is." "Thank you," Kate said, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. "I hope you'll come to the ceremony. It would mean a lot to me." This time it was Martha's turn to sniff. "Of course Clark and I will be there, and I have a feeling we will see a lot more of each other. Now let's get you into this dress." Kate did not argue as she stepped out of her dress and into the one Martha had brought. As the woman had said, it was slightly bigger, but Martha was able to pin much of the excess away. And when Kate looked in the mirror, tears filled her eyes once again. This time they were tears of joy. It was not her mother's dress, but she had no doubt that her mother would be proud of the way she looked. Kate turned to the elder woman and embraced her. "Thank you, Martha. I do not know how I can repay you for all your kindness." "Oh, hush," the woman said, wiping a tear from her eye. "I am happy to help, and you can repay me by being a good wife to Jesse. He suffered mightily with Pauline's death, and he needs a good woman looking out for him." "I will, I promise." "Good, then let's get you married." Jesse stood at the front of the chapel, rocking back and forth on his heels. He could not believe how nervous he was. When he'd told Clark about his decision to marry Kate, the man had offered to bring her to the church at the appointed time and serve as witness. Yet the church bell had just finished ringing the 2 o'clock hour, and there was still no sign of them. Jeb and Sheriff Johnson looked at him with raised eyebrows from their position in the front row. Clearly, they thought he had been stood up, and Jesse had no doubt they were thinking that their time would be better spent patrolling the town. Jesse swallowed his apprehension and shook his head. Maybe this had been a big mistake. "I'm sure they'll be here shortly," Pastor Lewis said, as Jesse looked toward the front doors once more. A few moments later, the doors flew open, and Martha hurried in, waving her hands. "I'm sorry we're late. We had to do a quick change." Kate stepped in next, and Jesse's breath caught in his throat. Her dark hair was pulled back with combs, except for a few tendrils that framed her face. The cream dress she was wearing showed off her slim waist and made her eyes appear even more blue. There was no denying she was a beautiful woman. And a moment of guilt flooded him. He should not be thinking about this woman in that way. His heart was reserved for Pauline. She was who he was supposed to be marrying. But Pauline was here no longer, and he knew that she would want this for him. She never wanted him to be alone. And though Kate and Pauline were different women, Jesse believed they would have been friends if they'd ever met. A nervous smile pulled on Kate's lips as she stepped into the small chapel. A blond man with small spectacles and a black suit and white collar stood at the front near Jesse. In his hands was an open book. Kate assumed he must be the pastor. Next to him, Jesse stood in a similar black suit, only without the white collar. Instead, he wore a high-collared white shirt with a black tie. His dark hair was combed, and his face appeared even more chiseled without his hat. As she walked up the aisle, she realized the sheriff and Jeb were sitting in the front row as guests for Jesse. She was glad Clark and Martha had come with her. They weren't her real family, but aside from Ellen, they were the closest friends she had here. She wondered briefly if she should have told Ellen about the wedding, but there hadn't really been time. Plus, she was marrying the man who should have been marrying Ellen's granddaughter. Kate was sure she did not need the reminder.
"I hope you don't mind me saying so, miss, but you look beautiful,"
Clark whispered and patted her hand in a fatherly gesture before joining Martha in the front row. A light pink covered her cheeks as she stopped beside Jesse.
"Hello, miss. I'm Pastor Lewis. Can I get your full name?"
The pastor had a kind voice and seemed much more coherent than the last pastor who had almost married her. "Mary Catherine Whidby," Kate said, "but everyone just calls me Kate."
"That's fine,"
the man said with a smile. His gaze shifted from her to the people in the pews as he began.
"Dear friends, we are gathered here today to join Deputy Jesse Jennings and Mary Catherine Whidby in holy matrimony. Jesse, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to protect until death do you part?"
"I do," Jesse said. The pastor turned to Kate.
"And do you, Kate, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to cherish until death do you part?"
"I do," Kate said.
"Do you have rings, Jesse?"
Pastor Lewis asked. Kate was surprised when Jesse dug in his coat pocket and pulled out 2 gold bands. She'd had no idea he had purchased wedding rings.
"Very well. Place the ring on Kate's finger and repeat after me."
When Jesse took her hand, Kate felt the smallest tingle shoot down her arm. This was so different from the near disaster with Bill Easterly, and almost what she had imagined her wedding to be like. He slid the ring on her finger as he spoke.
"With this ring, I thee wed."
A feeling of warmth followed the tingle, and she glanced up to see if Jesse had felt it, but he was focused on placing the other ring in her palm.
"Kate, if you'll put the ring on Jesse's hand and repeat after me,"
Pastor Lewis said. Kate fumbled with the ring, but managed to secure it on Jesse's hand and repeat the words.
"Then by the power vested to me by God and the great state of Texas, I now pronounce you husband and wife."
Though Kate was unsure what to expect next, the kiss from Jesse, even though it was quick and just on her cheek, had not even been an inkling in her mind. Her cheek flamed with heat, and she was sure it was emblazoned for everyone to see, though no one said anything about it. Instead, the sheriff, Jeb, and Clark surrounded her husband, shaking his hand and congratulating him. Her husband. The words felt foreign, and yet not wrong on her tongue. "You looked beautiful," Martha said, pulling her in for another embrace. "Thank you. I can return your dress once we get back to the inn. I suppose I'll need to pack my things shortly." Martha patted her hand. "You keep the dress." "Oh, I couldn't." "You have a much better chance of having a daughter to pass it to one day than I do," Martha said with a smile. This time Kate knew her cheeks flamed. She had not considered that aspect of the marriage, but Martha was right. At some point, Jesse was sure to want children.
"Shall we go retrieve your things from the inn?"
he asked, appearing at her side. "Yes, of course." She took his arm and followed him out of the church. The sheriff and Jeb bade farewell and returned to their duties, while Martha and Clark accompanied them back to the inn. Once there, Kate hurried to her room to pack her things. Then she said goodbye to Clark and Martha before following Jesse to his wagon. He loaded her things and then turned to her.
I know this isn't what we both imagined for our futures, but we can make the best of this situation if we both agree to try. I promise I will be a loyal and kind husband.
A smile formed on her lips as she nodded. I want to make this work as well. I will do my best to be the kind of wife you need.
All right then,
he said, and held out a hand to help her into the wagon. She settled on the seat, and he climbed up beside her and pointed the wagon toward his homestead. The ride to Jesse's home, and now hers, was quiet. But when the homestead came into view, the enormity of her decision landed on her shoulders. She would now be sharing a house with a man she barely knew, and they hadn't discussed intimacy. He expected her to be a good wife, and that came with certain duties. But would he expect her to fulfill them tonight? Kate assumed, as this was more a marriage of convenience, that they would wait until they knew each other better. But she realized they should have discussed it.
I'd give you the tour, he said with a small smile, but you've been here before.
It did Kate's heart good to see him nervous as well. That's all right. You could give me the tour anyway. Jesse smiled and opened the door.
Well then, come inside, and while you get situated, I'll come back out and get your things.
Kate inspected the house from a woman's standpoint as she entered this time. It was nothing grand, but it did have a homier feel than Bill Easterly's place had. The kitchen was clean and everything appeared to have a set place. The main room housed a few chairs and a small couch. Beside the bedroom was another door, which Jesse pushed open to display a wash basin and a freestanding tub. You have a tub? Kate asked with surprise. Even in Boston, only the rich had a separate room for tubs.
I saved up for it. It was going to be my wedding present to Pauline, Jesse said with a sad smile.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kate felt awful for reminding him once again of Pauline, but was glad to know he had cared enough about his future bride to do something nice for her. Another stark difference from Bill Easterly.
It's fine.
Jesse cleared his throat and continued the tour.
You can sleep in the bedroom, of course, and I'll take the couch in the main room, Jesse said. I'll grab your things and be right back.
Well, at least that answered the question of whether he expected intimacy tonight or not. Kate wandered into the bedroom while Jesse returned to the wagon. A wrought iron bed covered in a quilt sat squarely in the middle. She wondered briefly if Pauline had made the quilt. There was a dresser with a mirror and a small table beside the bed, and on top of the table, Kate was delighted to find a Bible. If Jesse were a believer, then perhaps this could be a happy marriage after all. She had just picked up the book when he re-entered with her things. I'm sorry, she said, dropping it back on the table.
Don't be.
He set her trunk on the floor and crossed to her.
Are you a believer?
I am, she said. I was worried I might not marry a Christian man, but I guess God was watching out for me after all.
Would you like to go to church with me on Sunday, then? Jesse asked.
Yes, I would love that. As they shared a smile, Kate began to feel that maybe everything would work out after all.